Hey there folks, I'm Alex the Whyzer, and today's This or That, we're looking at the D Model US and the X4 in these wonderful New England windy conditions. So we are officially in winter here in New England, which means that it is not the most optimum weather to be doing flight reviews, especially because it is always windy this time of year. Today we got about a 10 to 15 mile an hour gusting wind, but it's coming from behind me when I'm filming, and a tailwind is really an ideal situation to be throwing understable drivers like the D Model US and the X4. Alright, tailwind shots it is. So why I went with the X4 over the D4 is largely because of the hand feel. If you look at the rims of these discs, particularly on the underside, you'll notice a very, very sharp taper on the D Model US that the D4 just doesn't have. The X4 has that taper, but it's nowhere near as pronounced as it is on the D Model. Additionally, I feel like the D Model is a little bit deeper and it's a little bit higher profile than the X4 as well. The differences continue when you're looking at the flight. The D Model US is constantly going to be more overstable than the X4 is. In the tailwind, when I threw these flat, I threw them both at about 75%, and the D Model S in that tailwind just rode dead straight with a nice gentle fade. Almost like I was throwing a Whyzer flip, but I was keeping that angle flat. The X4, on the other hand, with that same amount of power, it did start turning a little bit in that tailwind, and it started going up and down a little bit more than the D Model US did, so the wind definitely played with this a little bit more. Having that tailwind coming from behind my throwing shoulder made it really nice conditions for throwing big Whyzer bombs with these understable discs. When I threw the D Model US on a hard Whyzer with that tailwind, it stood up and just rode dead straight and then coasted into the fade for that real nice distance Whyzer shot. The X4 with that same amount of Whyzer and that same tailwind still stood up, turned, and then finished. So you're definitely gonna get more high-speed turn out of an X4 on a Whyzer in a tailwind. Instead of throwing these discs in the sky on an anhyzer line, I decided to get a little frisky and throw a backhanded roller because I feel like something this understable, a lot of players bag them specifically for rollers, so I'd show them, which is not something I'm particularly great at. The D Model US, I threw on that hard sky roller line, it hit, it didn't flip immediately, and then it sort of finished off to the left as it started to slow down. The X4 on that same roller line stayed pretty much straight up and down with the ground when it landed and then peeled off harder left, so it netted a little bit further off to my arm side than the D Model did. Ugh, both of those rollers were so bad though. When it comes down to this or that, I'm sticking with the X4 largely because of consistency. This disc knows what it is, it fits perfectly in the naming convention, and out of the box, it's going to fly understable. Every X4 I've ever touched has been super flippy. I'm not gonna lie, the D Model US is a lot more stable than I expected. It did come with a good amount of flashing, and once I took that flashing off, it flew a lot more true to the understable flight, but still nowhere near as understable as I would have expected from the numbers. If you have a higher arm speed and you don't want something that's going to be super duper understable but will still turn, you might really dig the D Model US after you season it a little bit. But if you're looking for something that you don't need to spend a whole lot of time on, that you can trust to turn over, I would still go with the X4.